Ecclesiasticus, son of the congregation. The spiritual offspring of the faithful in the context of Aeons, Ecclesiasticus, often referred to as the son of the congregation, encapsulates a vital spiritual concept of collective faith, wisdom, and the manifestation of divine truth. Derived from the Septuagint and part of the Deuterocanonical books of the Bible, Ecclesiasticus is more than just a collection of teachings. It represents an Aeon, a spiritual attribute or manifestation that emerges from the gathering of the faithful. In a metaphysical or Gnostic sense, Ecclesiasticus signifies the Aeonic offspring that arises from collective worship, understanding, and alignment with the divine. This Aeon embodies the wisdom produced through unity within a spiritual community, where divine blessings and wisdom flow, giving rise to a harmonious whole that reflects God's will. Meaning of Ecclesiasticus: the spiritual product of the congregation as an Aeon. Ecclesiasticus represents the spiritual fruit of the communal devotion to divine truth. The son of the congregation suggests that Ecclesiasticus, son of the congregation, the spiritual offspring of the faithful in the context of Aeons, Ecclesiasticus, often referred to as the son of the congregation, encapsulates a vital spiritual concept of collective faith, wisdom, and the manifestation of divine truth. Derived from the Septuagint and part of the Deuterocanonical books of the Bible, Ecclesiasticus is more than just a collection of teachings. It represents an Aeon, a spiritual attribute or manifestation that emerges from the gathering of the faithful. In a metaphysical or Gnostic sense, Ecclesiasticus signifies the Aeonic offspring that arises from collective worship, understanding, and alignment with the divine. This Aeon embodies the wisdom produced through unity within a spiritual community, where divine blessings and wisdom flow, giving rise to a harmonious whole that reflects God's will. Meaning of Ecclesiasticus: the spiritual product of the congregation as an Aeon. Ecclesiasticus represents the spiritual fruit of the communal devotion to divine truth. The son of the congregation suggests that the wisdom of God is not an individual pursuit, but is collectively realized in the hearts of the faithful. Just as the faith of the congregation binds believers together, so too does it give birth to an Aeon of divine wisdom. This spiritual offspring is not the creation of any one individual, but a product of shared purpose and collective spiritual growth, giving rise to an Aeonic manifestation of divine wisdom. The wisdom of the Lord, according to Ecclesiasticus, is bestowed upon those who fear the Lord and align themselves with his will, forming an unbreakable bond between the faithful and the divine. Ecclesiasticus 1:1 states, "All wisdom is from the Lord, and with him it remains forever." This verse underscores that divine wisdom, as an eternal and immutable Aeon, originates from God. It is shared among the faithful as they gather in reverence, and their collective worship serves as the vessel for divine wisdom to manifest in the world. Metaphysical role of Ecclesiasticus, a community's spiritual manifestation as an Aeon. In Gnostic metaphysical terms, Ecclesiasticus embodies the role of the Aeon that arises from collective worship, devotion, and alignment with divine wisdom. It represents the idea that true spiritual insight and wisdom are not solely individual pursuits, but are gifts that emerge from the communion of believers. The wisdom embodied in Ecclesiasticus serves as a transformative force that shapes the consciousness of those who align with the divine. Ecclesiasticus 1 verse 12 offers, "The fear of the Lord delights the heart and gives gladness and joy and long life." This passage illustrates that the wisdom born of the fear of the Lord is not merely intellectual knowledge, but a transformative power that brings joy, peace, and divine favor. It is through the collective experience of the congregation, in communion with one another, that this wisdom is realized. The community, as an Aeonic vessel, channels divine wisdom to all who are aligned with it. In a Gnostic context, the wisdom of Ecclesiasticus is not just about knowledge, but about spiritual rebirth. The transformation of the soul happens within the broader community. Wisdom is shared among the congregation and is only fully realized when the community is united in purpose and devotion. The Gospel of Philip, a convert as the son of the congregation. The Gospel of Philip deepens our understanding of Ecclesiasticus, particularly in the context of the convert being the son of the congregation. Here, the idea of conversion is not merely about outward change, but is closely tied to spiritual rebirth, which is rooted in the collective wisdom of the Aeonic community. The son of the congregation is a term used for the individual who is spiritually reborn through the collective wisdom and grace of the faithful. The Gospel of Philip states, "A Hebrew makes a Hebrew, and such a person is called a convert, Ecclesiasticus, son of the congregation." A convert does not make a convert. Some people are as they are and make others like them, while others simply are. This passage speaks to the Gnostic understanding that spiritual transformation happens through the community. The son of the congregation refers to someone who undergoes a spiritual transformation through communion with others who share the divine wisdom. It is a process that transcends personal effort or will. It is a collective manifestation of divine knowledge that shapes the convert's spiritual consciousness. The convert does not merely adopt a new identity, they enter into a new spiritual lineage, adopting the wisdom of the faithful. This process of spiritual rebirth through the collective wisdom is similar to the inheritance of an Aeon, one that connects the believer to both the living and the dead, guiding them in their journey of spiritual enlightenment. The Gospel of Philip elaborates, "Heirs to the dead are dead, and what they inherit is dead. Heirs to the living are alive, and they inherit both the living and the dead." This passage emphasizes the transformative power of spiritual rebirth, which is attained through the community's wisdom. As heirs to the living wisdom, converts become part of the eternal Aeon that transcends both time and death, connecting them to the divine and to the wisdom that has existed since the beginning. Impact on the consciousness of a believer. For the believer, understanding Ecclesiasticus as an Aeon of the congregation leads to a profound shift in consciousness. The individual enters into a collective experience of divine wisdom, one that transforms their perception of themselves and the world. As part of the spiritual community, the believer awakens to a higher understanding of divine truth, which impacts their behavior, thoughts, and emotions. The fear of the Lord, described in Ecclesiasticus, is not a dread, but an awe that opens the heart to divine wisdom. As believers participate in this communal worship, their consciousness expands, and they become more attuned to the spiritual realities around them. This wisdom does not come in isolation, but as a product of the collective faith of the congregation, which is shared and passed down through generations. The Gospel of Philip's teaching on inheritance also reflects how this Aeon of wisdom impacts consciousness. As heirs of the living, the believer inherits the wisdom of both the living and the dead. This spiritual inheritance transforms their consciousness, awakening them to a higher plane of understanding and guiding them towards spiritual maturity. Conclusion. Ecclesiasticus, as the son of the congregation, is a representation of the divine wisdom that arises from the collective faith and unity of the believers. This concept can be understood as an Aeon, an eternal and transformative spiritual manifestation that emerges from the communal worship and alignment with divine truth. In the Gnostic context, believers who embrace the wisdom of the congregation become part of a larger spiritual family, connected to the eternal flow of divine wisdom that transcends time and space. Through this process, they experience spiritual rebirth and become heirs to the living wisdom that leads them to eternal life.